Hello everyone. Let me start with something that might completely change the way you think about fluency. Imagine two people speaking English. The first person speaks very fast, but stops every few seconds to search for words. The second person speaks more slowly, but the sentences keep flowing. No long pauses. No panic. No freezing in the middle of a thought. Who sounds more fluent to you? Most people answer in the second person. And that is important because many learners secretly believe fluency means speed. They think, if I could just speak faster, I would finally sound natural. But real fluency is not speed. Real fluency is flow. It is the feeling that your thoughts can move forward without getting trapped inside your head. You probably know the opposite feeling too. You know what you want to say, but before the words come out, your brain starts translating, searching, checking grammar. And suddenly the moment feels heavy, slow, stressful. That is not a vocabulary problem, and it is not because you are bad at English. It is because your brain has not built enough automatic speaking habits yet. The good news is that habits can be trained. Over the next 30 days, we are not going to focus on sounding impressive. We are going to focus on something much more important: clarity, comfort, and flow. Because when speaking starts feeling more natural, speed begins to appear by itself. Calm speakers become faster over time. Panic speakers usually do not. And here is another thing that surprised me when I first understood it. Fluency is not built by learning huge amounts of English very quickly. It is built by using simple English again and again until your brain stops treating it like something foreign. That means this journey is not really about studying more. It is about using English more actively in your daily life. There is a big difference between those two things. Studying gives you knowledge, but active practice teaches your brain how to move inside the language in real time. And that is the part most learners skip for years without realizing it. So in this episode, I want to give you a practical system for changing that. Not complicated techniques, not impossible schedules, just small daily actions that slowly make speaking feel easier, calmer, and more automatic. But before we get into the methods themselves, there is one mindset shift that matters more than all the others combined. You need to stop treating mistakes like danger. I know that sounds simple, but for many learners, mistakes feel emotionally painful. Even one small grammatical mistake can create embarrassment, silence, or panic. So instead of speaking imperfectly, people wait. They wait until they feel more prepared, more confident, more correct. But confidence rarely comes first. Confidence grows after repeated action. And mistakes are part of that process, whether we like it or not. In fact, every time you speak and make a mistake, your brain receives useful information. It adjusts, it learns, it becomes faster the next time. But every time you stay silent because you're afraid of being wrong, your brain learns something too. It learns avoidance, and avoidance slowly becomes a habit. That is why for the next 30 days, I want you to make one simple commitment. Keep speaking. Even when the sentence is not perfect, even when you are not fully sure, because the people who become fluent are usually not the people who avoid mistakes best. They are the people who continue speaking long enough for mistakes to stop frightening them. And somewhere along the way, something unexpected happens. The fear becomes smaller. The pauses become shorter. And the voice inside your head that once said, "I cannot do this," slowly becomes quieter. Now let us begin with the foundation of everything. The single most powerful daily habit you can build for English fluency costs you nothing. You do not need special equipment. You do not need a teacher beside you. You can even do it alone in your room. It is this: speak to yourself in English while you are living your normal life. This sounds simple because it is simple, but it is also one of the most effective habits most learners never seriously try. I still remember the first morning I did this. I was alone in my kitchen making breakfast, and I quietly said, "The bread is going into the toaster." Then I laughed a little because honestly, it felt strange. Nobody was there. I felt awkward talking to myself in another language. But the next morning I did it again, and after a few weeks, something surprising happened. I stopped translating so much. The English started appearing faster and more naturally. That is why this habit matters. When you wake up in the morning and make your bed, describe it in English. I'm making my bed. I'm pulling the sheets straight. The pillow goes here. When you make breakfast, I'm pouring water into the kettle. The coffee smells good. When you walk outside, the weather feels cool today. There are a lot of people on the street. Simple sentences, real moments, real voice. And slowly, your brain starts building a direct connection between daily life and English. Most learners still do this inside their head. First, the idea appears. Then they translate it into their own language. And only after that do they try to build the English sentence. That extra step creates hesitation. It creates the pause. It creates the feeling of searching for words while the conversation keeps moving. But when you describe your life directly in English every day, your brain slowly becomes more comfortable thinking in English first. Little by little, the translation step becomes smaller, and one day you notice something surprising. The English is simply there. That smooth connection between thought and speech is what fluency actually feels like. So start today. Choose 5 simple actions from your normal day and narrate them in English while you do them. Do not worry about sounding impressive. Just speak. And before we continue, say this out loud with me. I can describe my life in English. Now, let us talk about the second skill, listening. Most learners already listen to English every day. Podcasts, music, videos, movies. But many people still feel lost when real conversations happen quickly. The reason is simple. There is a big difference between passive listening and active listening. Passive listening is when English stays in the background while your attention is somewhere else. Maybe you're cooking, scrolling on your phone, or cleaning your room. Your ears hear the sounds, but your brain is not deeply focused on them. Active listening feels different. You pay close attention to the speaker, not only to the words, but also to the rhythm of the language, the way the voice rises during a question, the way certain words become stronger, the way natural English flows together. That leads us to one of the most powerful speaking exercises I know, shadowing. Shadowing is simple, but it can feel difficult at first. You choose a short piece of English audio. 10 seconds is enough. First, you listen carefully all the way through. Then you play it again and speak at the same time as the speaker. Not after them. At the same time. You copy the rhythm, the speed, the emotion, and the stress of the sentence as closely as possible. The first time I seriously tried shadowing, I could barely keep up. I lost words. My timing was terrible. I felt frustrated after only a few seconds. But after repeating the same short clip again and again, something slowly changed. My mouth started moving more naturally. The rhythm felt less foreign. English stopped sounding like separate words and started sounding like connected speech. And honestly, that uncomfortable feeling at the beginning is not a bad sign. The struggle is part of the training. When your mouth works hard to follow real English rhythm, your brain is building new speaking habits underneath the surface. So if shadowing feels difficult at first, that is normal. Start small. Repeat the same short clip several times before moving to the next one. And over time, your listening, pronunciation, and speaking rhythm will improve together because you are training your ears and your mouth at the same time. Now, I want to talk about something that most English learners almost never practice directly, even though it changes real conversations immediately. Ready-made sentences. At first, many learners believe fluent speakers create every sentence from zero in real time, but that is not really how natural speaking works. A huge part of everyday English is made of phrases people have used so many times that they come out automatically. Things like, "Could you help me with this? I'm not sure I understand. Could you say that again? I'll think about it." That's a really good point. These phrases are not complicated, but fluent speakers do not stop to build them word by word. The sentences already exist in their mind as complete units. They hear the situation, and the phrase appears almost instantly. That is one reason fluent speakers sound relaxed while many learners feel mentally exhausted during conversations. Learners often try to construct every sentence from the beginning each time they speak. Fluent speakers rely heavily on patterns they already know deeply. I remember noticing this very clearly during one conversation years ago. Someone asked me a question in English, and before I could answer the real topic, I froze trying to say something simple like, "Give me a second to think." I knew every word individually, but I had never practiced the whole phrase naturally. So my brain searched slowly while the conversation kept moving. That moment taught me something important. Fluency is not only about vocabulary size. It is also about having useful language ready before you need it. So, start building your own phrase library intentionally. Every week, choose a few phrases that match the kinds of conversations you actually want to have. Practice them out loud until they feel natural in your mouth. Then use them during your speaking practice throughout the week. And slowly, something interesting happens. Your brain stops spending so much energy on basic responses. That extra mental space becomes available for your real ideas, emotions, and opinions. That is when conversations start feeling easier. Now, let me show you another technique that can completely change the way your English sounds. I call it the expand and extend method. One of the biggest differences between basic English and natural English is sentence flow. Many learners speak in very short sentences. I went to the market. I bought fruit. It was good. There is nothing wrong with these sentences. The grammar is correct. But when every sentence is short and disconnected, the speech starts sounding flat and mechanical. Natural conversation usually flows more smoothly because speakers add reasons, details, and small connections between ideas. For example, I like coffee. That is your starting sentence. Now expand it a little. I like coffee because it helps me wake up in the morning. Good. Now extend it further. I like coffee because it helps me wake up in the morning and I love the smell when it fills the kitchen. Notice what happened there. The English suddenly sounds warmer, more natural, and more alive. But you did not use difficult grammar. You did not need advanced vocabulary. You simply stretched the idea a little further. This is one of the biggest hidden secrets of fluency. Fluent speakers are often not using more complicated English. They are simply developing their thoughts more fully. So practice this every day. Take one simple sentence from your real life and challenge yourself to grow it into a fuller thought. And before we continue, say this out loud. I can say more than one short sentence. Now, I want to talk about something that many English learners completely ignore, even though it changes the way you sound immediately. Tone. Tone is the feeling inside your voice. It is the emotion behind the words. And honestly, people often react more to your tone than to your grammar. Think about this sentence. That's a great idea. Now imagine someone saying it with a completely flat voice. No emotion, no energy. It almost sounds boring. But now imagine hearing the same sentence with real excitement and warmth. Same words. A completely different feeling. This is why tone matters so much. Many learners speak with very flat emotion, not because they are cold or uninterested, but because they are concentrating so hard on vocabulary and grammar that they forget about the natural music of conversation. I used to do this too. I was so focused on saying the sentence correctly that my voice became stiff and unnatural. Technically, the English was fine, but emotionally, it sounded disconnected. And real conversation is emotional. So as your speaking becomes more comfortable, start paying attention not only to the words you say, but also to how you say them. A very simple exercise is to repeat the same sentence in different emotional ways. And this is important to understand. This is not acting. This is normal human communication. Now, connected to tone is another small skill that makes conversations feel much more natural. Reaction phrases. These are the short responses people use during conversations to show they are listening and emotionally present. Things like, "Really? That's interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. I see what you mean. Exactly. That makes sense." These phrases may seem tiny, but they do a lot of important work in conversations. They show the other person you are engaged. They keep the conversation alive. And they also give your brain a few extra seconds to think about what you want to say next. Without these reactions, conversations can start feeling cold or awkward very quickly. I remember one of my first longer conversations in another language. The other person kept speaking, and I stayed completely silent while trying to prepare my next sentence perfectly in my head. After a while, the conversation started feeling uncomfortable because emotionally I was disappearing from it. That is when I realized something important. Good conversations are not built only from perfect sentences. They are built from connection. And reaction phrases help create that connection. At first, 1 minute will probably feel surprisingly long. By the second or third week, something changes. Your brain becomes more comfortable staying in English for longer periods of time. Ideas start connecting more naturally. And eventually, 1 minute no longer feels difficult at all. You may suddenly notice yourself speaking for 2 or 3 minutes about a topic without running out of things to say. That is real progress. And before we continue, say this out loud. I do not need perfect English to keep speaking. Now, there is another exercise that connects very naturally to this one. Practice speaking about the same idea in different time frames. Real conversations constantly move between the past, present, and future. One moment someone asks what you did yesterday. The next moment they ask what you are doing now or what you plan to do next week. Fluent speakers move between these time frames smoothly because their grammar has become flexible through repetition. So practice this directly. Take one simple action, like cooking dinner, then say it in 3 different ways. Last night I cooked dinner. Right now I'm cooking dinner. Tomorrow I'm gonna cook dinner. Simple exercise. Huge effect. Do this with a few different actions every day, and your brain slowly becomes faster at switching naturally between different tenses during conversation. Now let me talk about storytelling, because this is one of the biggest differences between answering questions and truly holding a conversation. People connect through stories, even very small stories. And when you can describe moments from your real life in a vivid way, your English suddenly feels more alive and human. Many learners say things like, I went to the market. Perfectly correct sentence. But now listen to this. Yesterday morning, I went to the market near my house. The air was still cool, and I could smell fresh bread from the bakery nearby. I bought strawberries and mangoes. And the whole walk home, I kept thinking about breakfast. The vocabulary is still simple, but now the listener can imagine the moment. That is the difference details create. I started noticing this in my own speaking years ago. The moment I stopped trying to sound impressive and started describing real experiences more clearly, conversations became much more interesting and natural. So practice telling small stories from your real life. What you saw today, what happened at work, a funny moment, something surprising, something stressful, something beautiful. Then try describing the same story in different ways. First, tell the short version. Then tell a more detailed version. Then tell the emotional version where you explain how the experience felt. This exercise builds flexibility in a very natural way because your brain learns how to express the same idea with different levels of detail and emotion. Now I want to show you one of the most useful fluency skills nobody talks about enough. Talking around a word you do not know. There is actually a long academic word for this, circumlocution. But the idea itself is simple. Instead of stopping the conversation because one word disappears from your memory, you describe the idea using simpler language and keep speaking. This skill changes everything because it removes the fear of forgetting vocabulary. For example, imagine you forget the word wallet. Many learners panic and stop talking completely. But a fluent speaker simply says, the small thing where I keep my money and cards. If you forget microwave, you can say, the machine that heats food very quickly. If you forget allergic, you can say, when your body reacts badly to something. Notice what is happening here. The conversation keeps moving. That is the important part. Because fluency is not about knowing every word. It is about staying communicative even when your vocabulary is incomplete. And honestly, native speakers do this too more often than you think. Closely connected to this is another important skill, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing simply means expressing the same idea in different words. This is incredibly useful during conversations because it helps you stay engaged even when the exact vocabulary is missing. For example, I'm very tired. You could also say, I'm exhausted, or I do not have much energy today, or I feel like I need to sleep. Same basic meaning, different expressions. And the more flexible your brain becomes with language like this, the more natural speaking starts to feel. And that tiny extra time often makes conversations feel much calmer and smoother. Before we continue, say this out loud. I can always find another way to say it. Now I want to talk about one of the most underrated fluency exercises you can practice completely alone, describing images and scenes. Most learners never train this skill directly, but honestly, it develops almost everything at the same time. Vocabulary, observation, storytelling, emotion, flexibility, continuous speaking. All you need is a picture and your voice. Open any photo on your phone, a street scene, a family dinner, a beach, a crowded market, anything. Then start describing what you see. Who is in the picture? What are they doing? What colors stand out? What time of day does it look like? What feeling does the image create? At first, keep it simple. There are 3 people sitting at a table. It looks like evening. The children seem happy. Then slowly go further. Invent a story. Maybe the family is celebrating a birthday. Maybe they drove there after a long trip. Maybe the children are excited because they do not usually visit places like this. This is why the exercise is so powerful. You are not only describing objects, you are practicing imagination, emotion, storytelling, and explanation at the same time. I started doing this myself during a period when I did not have many chances to speak English with other people. At first, I thought it felt a little strange talking to a photograph. But after a few weeks, I noticed something important. My sentences became longer. My ideas connected more naturally. And speaking stopped feeling so empty because I was creating little stories instead of only practicing isolated grammar. That is the hidden power of this exercise. It teaches your brain how to keep ideas moving. And that ability is one of the deepest parts of fluency. Now, let me bring everything together and show you what a realistic 30-day practice routine can actually look like. Not a perfect routine. Not a 3-hour study marathon. A real routine that can fit inside normal life. Because honestly, consistency matters much more than intensity. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning. Before touching your phone, you spend 5 minutes speaking English out loud. You describe your room. You talk about your plans for the day. You narrate simple actions while making coffee or getting dressed. The goal is not impressive English. The goal is waking your brain up in English instead of immediately returning to passive scrolling and silence. Then during the day, use small empty moments more intentionally. While walking, commuting, or waiting somewhere, practice active listening and shadowing. Choose one short audio clip, maybe only 10 or 15 seconds long. Listen carefully. Repeat it several times. Find one phrase you really like and try using it naturally before the day ends. That is enough. Then later, in the afternoon or evening, spend 20 or 30 minutes on focused practice. Not random practice, focused practice. Maybe you start with the 1-minute speaking drill. Choose a topic and keep talking for the full minute without stopping. Then spend a few minutes expanding simple sentences into fuller thoughts. After that, practice storytelling. Describe something that happened during your day with details, feelings, and small observations. Then rotate through different speaking skills. One day you focus on transitions. another day on tone and emotion, another day on paraphrasing, another day on describing words you do not know. Small focused practice creates much faster improvement than trying to practice everything at the same time. And one more thing that helped me enormously, recording yourself. I know many people hate hearing their own voice at first. I hated it too. But recording is powerful because it lets you notice patterns you cannot hear while speaking live. Where do you hesitate? Which words feel easy now? Which mistakes keep repeating? And maybe most importantly, what sounds better than it did 2 weeks ago? Because progress often feels invisible while it is happening. Recordings help make the improvement real. Then before sleeping, spend a few quiet minutes reviewing your day in English. Not heavy studying, just remembering. And honestly, this entire system works for one simple reason. It stops English from becoming something you only study sometimes, and slowly turns it into something you actually live every day. Now, there is one more thing I want to say about these 30 days. And honestly, it may be the most important part of this entire journey. Your only real competition is the version of yourself from yesterday. Did you understand one sentence today that you would have missed last month? Did one response come out a little faster than before? Did you stay calm for a few extra seconds during a conversation instead of freezing immediately? Those small moments matter much more than people realize. Because fluency usually does not arrive in one dramatic breakthrough. It grows